blessing, being able to respond. At this time, I would love for Seward to come forward. He's going to share with us a bit about Liberia and the history. We recognize that this year's Liberian Independence Day, the theme is for, let's see, did I write it down? I wrote it down. One people, one destiny, healing the past and the people. That sounds like prayer. That sounds like praying with words and silence and action. And so, Seward, without further ado, please come forward.
Thank you, Mother Jess, and thank you, St. Anne's, for joining us in celebrating Liberia's 178th independence anniversary. Now, your program states that I will give a history of Liberia, but I propose to do an abbreviated history that will highlight certain things of particular interest to this particular congregation. Today, I'm reminded, one, of advice given by a Liberian historian trained at Stanford University, Professor Zamba Liberty, who said, "The historian must grapple with the past on its own terms, not as the present would have it to be, or his own predilections would wish it to be." I'm reminded also, and invite you to remember as we go through this, Maya Angelou's statement in her poem, On the Pulse of Morning, that history, with all its wrenching pain, once lived cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Now, these words resonate as we honor the history and journey of Liberia, a small, resilient republic on the west coast of Africa, home to 5 million people of 17 vibrant ethnic groups, uniting as one nation. Liberia's unique tapestry is woven with threads that connect it intricately to the United States of America. From being one of the only 3 countries in the world that uses the imperial measurement system rather than the metric system, to using the US dollar as legal tender alongside the Liberian dollar, to its flag, the Lone Star, that resembles the Star-Spangled Banner, to speaking what President Trump called good English as its official language, Liberia's story is intertwined with that of America. In truth, no true history of Liberia can be written or told without reference to the United States of America. Similarly, no comprehensive true history of these United States can be told without mention of Liberia. For you see, during 1816 in Washington, D.C., amidst the grim reality of officially sanctioned slavery in the United States, a group of American leaders, philanthropists, clergy, politicians, some of whom were slaveholders or abolitionists, formed the American Society for Colonizing the Free People of Color. This initiative, supported by figures like President Thomas Jefferson, President James Monroe, Speaker Henry Clay, author Francis Scott Key, who wrote the American National Anthem, and George Washington's nephew, Supreme Court Justice Bushwood Washington, as its president, sought to expatriate free African Americans. Several auxiliaries were established, In 1831, after the Nat Turner Rebellion against slavery by the enslaved that year, the Virginia Colonization Society, with a similar purpose, was formed, with none other than Chief Justice John Marshall as its president. It resolved to, quote, establish a new Virginia in the colony of Liberia. Various other such societies were established: the Mississippi Colonization Society, the Kentucky Colonization Society, the Maryland Colonization Society, which led to the establishment of the state of Maryland in Africa, which subsequently in 1857 merged with Liberia. The founders were driven by ideological beliefs, philanthropy, or some by economic interest tied to slavery. At that time, there were 250,000 free, unenslaved people of color in the United States. They had no citizenship rights. Nearly 50,000 free blacks were in Virginia. The number of enslaved persons in the U.S. by 1820 was 1.5 million people. Fear prevailed that the presence of the free blacks posed a threat to the stability and the evil business of enslavers. A solution had to be found to what was considered the problem of the free Negro in the United States. Therefore, the free blacks, it was decided, should be sent far away. With their continued presence, those who were free, there was fear that the enslaved would be inspired to aspire for freedom and rebel. Successful rebellions against slavery had already occurred in Haiti. Thus, Liberia was born, a name coined from the Latin word liber, which means free. Its capital, Monrovia, was named by the society as a tribute to President James Monroe, a staunch supporter of colonization, who arranged $100,000 from Congress for the endeavor. The United States Navy joined the society's agents to negotiate for land in West Africa. The first group of free African Americans were settled there in 1822, more than 200 years ago. Many were from the Commonwealth of Virginia. After that, some enslavers began freeing their slaves, but on condition that they would leave the USA. The U.S. Navy was charged to seize slave trading ships on the high seas, free the human cargo, and deposit them in the colony of Liberia. The Reverend Lord Carey, who was a free black Baptist pastor from Richmond, announced in 1820, "As for me, I desire to go to a country where I shall be estimated by my merits, not by my complexion." The colony of Liberia evolved as the Commonwealth of Liberia in 1839. And then on July 26, specifically a Sunday intentionally chosen, in the very first church built in the colony of Liberia, which was a Baptist church, the leaders of Liberia, all Christians, declared Liberia a free, sovereign, independent state and styled it the Republic of Liberia. 11 men from what then constituted the Commonwealth of Liberia signed the Declaration of Independence. When you see the Liberian flags, there are 11 stripes on the flag, which represents those 11 signers. The Declaration of Independence, which was written by Hilary Teach, one of the free people who had gone to Liberia, echoed the struggles faced in America. They wrote, and I'm quoting, we were compelled to contribute to the resources of a country which gave us no protection. We were made a separate and distinct class, and against us, every avenue of improvement was effectively closed. Strangers from other lands of a color different from ours were preferred before us. We uttered our complaints, but they were unattended to, or only met by alleging peculiar institutions of the country, unquote. A constitutional government was adopted that mirrored the United States system, with 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judiciary. Liberia's first president, Joseph Jenkins Roberts, was born in Petersburg, Virginia. A monument in his honor sits in Petersburg. The first 9 presidents of Liberia were born in Maryland, Ohio, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Virginia. Liberia's 11th president, Hillary Johnson, the son of one of those who had emigrated to Liberia, and all subsequent 16 presidents, except one who was born in Barbados, were born in Liberia. And then following a military coup d'etat and elections during the 1980s, Liberia got its first president born of indigenous parents, also in Liberia. By treaties and accession with earlier inhabitants of the area called the Grain Coast, Liberia expanded both in terms of its population and land area. And its population, which, as I indicated earlier, embraces multiple ethnic groups, 17 in all, who speak 28 different local languages. Recognizing continued challenges to nation building, Liberia's President Joseph N. Boakai, for this Independence Day, issued a proclamation appropriately declaring the theme for this Independence Day, as Mother Jess has indicated, one people, one destiny, healing the past, building the future. And while that theme applies to the Liberian people, it's a theme I think that could be more broadly embraced. One people, one destiny, healing the past, building the future, for we're all part of one human race. Throughout its 178-year journey, the Republic of Liberia has faced and surmounted immense challenges, survived the 1884 partitioning of Africa by Europeans, contributed to global organizations as a founding member at the creation of the League of Nations in 1919. And with Ethiopia, the other independent African state during the 1940s, signed the charter creating the United Nations Organization. Liberia survived 2 civil wars in the 1990s up until 2003. And that's why you see so many Liberians who were displaced. Over 1 million Liberians were displaced. Reportedly, over 250,000 of our people were killed during that period. Liberia combated and survived in 2014 the deadly Ebola epidemic. Liberia was a beacon of hope for colonized African countries, supported African liberation movements, was Liberia's ally, and hosted a U.S. military base, and with the investments from the Firestone family, supplied rubber to the Allied forces during World War II. In fact, Liberia was a base for supply to the North African theater during World War II. It had a U.S. military base stationed there. Liberia has conserved over 40% of West Africa's tropical rainforest, a vital resource in the global fight to mitigate adverse effects of climate change. Individual Liberians have also made remarkable contributions globally. From Solomon Carter Fuller, who I'm sure many of you have never heard of, the first black psychiatrist in the United States who studied under Dr. Alzheimer in Germany, to John B. Russwurm, co-founder of Freedom's Journal, the first black newspaper in the United States, to Francis Burns, the first black Methodist bishop in the United States, to Samuel David Ferguson, the first black member of the Episcopal Church House of Bishops in the United States, to Martin Henry Freeman, the first black president of an American college, and then to Nobel Prize laureates Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who became the first African woman elected president, and Lema Bowie, as well as George Weah, the only African to win the world's soccer top award, the Ballon d'Or. This small nation has made gigantic impact. It's a nation of 5 million people globally. But I would also like to say a few words, especially about the church, our church. I happen to be the Chancellor of the Episcopal Diocese of Liberia. The Episcopal Church's deep ties to Liberia began in 1836. In 1837, the following year, John Payne of Virginia was graduated from Virginia Theological Seminary. He was ordained and swiftly sent to Liberia as a missionary. Then, in 1851, John Payne was consecrated by the Episcopal Church USA as the first missionary bishop in what was called Kepamas and the parts adjacent, which later was renamed the Missionary Diocese of Liberia. The main library of the Virginia Theological Seminary bears the name of John Payne. Lekusa bears the name of John Payne and is in his memory, and also in memory of the Bishop Payne Divinity School, which was in Petersburg, Virginia, a seminary established especially and exclusively for Episcopal Black divinity students, which in 1953 was merged with Virginia Theological Seminary. And significantly, the first black students to Virginia Theological Seminary were Liberians from Liberia's Gribble ethnic group. The 3 students came from Maryland County in Liberia during the 1860s, almost a century before other black students were allowed to enroll at VTS. Also, the first African woman to earn a doctorate degree from the Virginia Theological Seminary also came from Liberia. She's Dr. Anne Fredericks Cooper. The relationship between the Episcopal Church of the USA and Liberia continues to flourish. St. Anne's Episcopal Church in Reston, Virginia, has been a spiritual haven for many Liberians. It was here at St. Anne's in 2006 that diaspora Liberian Episcopalians in the United States assembled and resolved to create the organization they named the Liberia Episcopal Community in the United States, LECUSA, which helps to support the Diocese of Liberia. Today, as we celebrate Liberia's independence and its enduring spirit, We honor its rich history, its resilience, and its unwavering hope. May peace and prosperity thrive in Liberia. Thank you, our St. Anne's family, for celebrating Liberia's history with us. May there always be a sweet, sweet spirit in this place. For us, we know that it's the Spirit of the Lord. Amen.